Good morning. It's Denise from Women Beyond a Certain Age. I'm so excited. We have a fabulous guest today. And even better, I can pronounce her name correctly. And those of you that listen all the time know that gives me such a sense of accomplishment. And our guest today is Vicky Bennison from Pasta Grannies. Grannies. I don't know what. Now, see, look, I have to make a mistake on the name of the book. Stop it. I haven't been drinking, Vicky. I'm always like this.
Okay.
It's Pasta Grannies. I don't know what's going on.
Do I say it? Pasta Grannies.
Thank you. Anyway, if you don't know about Pasta Grannies, I don't know why, because you're a phenomenon with this. It's phenomenal. And we have Vicky, where I read yesterday, Vicky's second cookbook from the series. Mm-hmm. And if you don't know about it, Vicky, people need to know they can go to YouTube and watch. But
so
tell us how did you get there? How did you get there with 2 million people?
Well, through perseverance. Pasta Grannies is, first of all, a YouTube channel. Yes. That I started sort of accidentally and casually about 9 years ago. Yeah. So I'd bought a house in Marquay with my husband back in 2005. And over the course of a few years, sort of noticed that it was only older women who were making pasta by hand on a daily basis. And I thought, obviously younger women are having to go out to work and yes. don't want to. They can't leave, that lifestyle behind quick enough. They can buy their pasta from the corner pastificio. But I certainly thought that, this is the last of a generation of women who, that pasta making was a life skill. And therefore, someone should make a record of it. And the first Pasta Granny was the grandmother of my supermarket manager. And she came over and showed how to make ravioli. And I had a photographer friend in that session, and it was clear that we needed more than photography. I mean, photographs can be stylish and evocative, but they don't actually show the rhythm and the sort of almost the cadence. It's a kind of language. When you're making pasta, it just needs a video. It needs to be filmed rather than photographed or even written about. So I picked up a video camera, and without ever having done that before, I'm not a filmmaker. Well, I am now, but I wasn't then. You had to learn on the job. So that's how it was born, having a film Maria or photograph Maria. The photographer said, "Oh, film my granny." And so we did that. And then there was a neighbor that we did. So sort of gradually, I found people through word of mouth. And that's how, and YouTube was a fairly new thing, and it was an obvious place to park videos. And then you kind of realize dimly that actually I needed to start taking it seriously, because if I wanted more than 3 subscribers, I would have to post more regularly.
And think about your content.
Exactly. So I had to sort of, start researching more seriously, and that's how Pasta Grannies was born.
Okay. Now, so you saw the need because you were living in a town in Italy that you saw it disappearing. You saw this. Okay. Mm-hmm. The book is fabulous. And if people, I'll tell you why I liked it the most. I mean, for everything, Vicky, and really, I've watched the show many times. I haven't watched any of the new season. I'm pretty sure I watched the entire first season, because I found it going to YouTube, found it kind of by accident. Oh, I thought, I've heard of this. And then I binged it. I just kept watching it. And it made me feel your comments about this disappearing and a lifestyle. My grandmother came from Monforte in northern Italy in the Piedmont region. And they moved to San Francisco. My grandfather was also from there, and then he'd come first. So as a child in the early 50s, I can remember her fresh pasta at every holiday, if not every day. Do you know what I mean? It was just, and you have several pictures in your book, and one of the grannies is standing next to a bed with a whole bunch of bags of, it looks like semolina or the flowers. My grandparents lived in a lovely apartment. It was small, and she would always lay the pasta out on a sheet to dry on her bed. So I hadn't seen that, and when I saw that picture, it made me cry, because it that's how we knew we were going to have pasta, because it was drying on her double bed. And anyway, the pictures are beautiful, but I need to say this, and you're going to give us some tips, I know. The very first pages of your book, and because my grandmother made pasta and because I'm Italian, I probably have every Italian cookbook ever. Okay. I mean, I have a lot of Italian cookbooks, and I've been to Italy where I went to private homes and I've taken classes, and I've worked on TV shows with chefs that had, castles or, different things in olive oil farms in Italy. But your first couple of pages of just how to measure the flour and why the flours are different from America to Italians is the most comprehensive I've ever seen.
Yes.
It's fantastic. Bless you. And of course, your sense of humor comes through, because every once in a while, I just say to people, no, you can't do that. Or yes, you can do that. But it's so comprehensive. I would think that people that are afraid to try to make pasta will be inspired by your writing.
I hope so. I think I did a bit of the science of the different flours and what goes into it. So people understand why there are differences and why they shouldn't be worried about it. So you can make pasta with any flour you like, but it will be slightly different. But that's okay. So if you can't find 00 flour, I've explained what 00 is. It's not actually, it's about ash content. It gets a bit complicated, but having discovered that, you can then go, okay, well, I can't get hold of it, but I recognize that in using a different flour, I might have to add a little bit more liquid, it won't behave in quite the same way. It's a matter of nuance. So the thing isn't going to blow up in your mixing bowl. It's not like pastry. There is not much in the way of chemistry happening. Actually, the easiest thing to start with is semola rimacinata,
Yes.
which is a durum wheat flour, and I think you can buy it in some delicatessens these days. But the thing, people like Hayden Flour Mills who also produce it. I think they're down in Arizona, and there'll be other flour mills closer to where you live that will probably do a similar thing, because after all, a lot of the wheat is grown in America. And Canada.
Yes, I knew about 00 flour because I've taken pasta classes in Italy. I brought a small bag home, and then I went online, and it's right there on Amazon, Vicky. Yes. I could buy it, the Italian brand. I could buy it on Amazon, and I thought, okay, well, won't worry about that in my suitcase any longer. So if people really, I agree with you, where I'm in LA, there are still Italian delis and markets that you can find just about anything you want, or, which is lovely. But if you really don't know about it, if you go to Amazon, they have several brands. I also buy off Amazon. If I'm going to make tiramisu, I buy the Italian lady fingers. Do you know what I mean? Because they're so entirely different than what you find here.
Yes.
So people don't have to be afraid. But if you just want to use your plain old flour, Vicky tells us how to in the book. Now, tools. We need to talk about tools in making pasta by hand.
So, all you really need are a pair of hands. Because quite a few pastas like cavatelli, you don't need anything at all. You can graduate up to, mattarello is a long rolling pin. Well, it's a rolling pin, but if you're going to make egg pasta, of any size, you'll need a longer rolling pin. You're limited by the pin, But you can use a broom rod or a doweling if you haven't got one. If you're not sure you're going to sort of make it regularly, there is no need to spend a lot of money on getting the right kit. I mean, it's because pasta was one of those things that everybody did, and you know, tools were not a kind of barrier to entry, if you like.
Yes.
You had what you use what you had. So a small pasta board. So in southern Italy, when you're using durum wheat flour, you know, you don't make huge pasta sheets with it. The flour behaves in a slightly different way, and you do make sfoglia, but you can also do more of fun things like cavatelli or orecchiette. These things hold their shape when they're cooked because of the flour that you're using. And also it means you have a smaller board because you don't want them rolling off. It has a little rim around it.
Now,
so, you know, the kit changes as you move around Italy.
yeah.
But, you know, you can, so if you want to make a macaroni, you can use a skewer, for example. You can use a knitting needle. There's all sorts of things you can approximate with a tool that doesn't require you to go and buy it from a specialist.
Yes.
Yeah, if you like.
After I read that, and here's the other thing. I can remember my grandmother's pasta board because she'd pull it out from the side and put it on her, you know, but I never saw her use a special rolling pin. So I don't know if she used her broom handle. Now, of course, she's been long gone. My aunt totally redid that apartment. So I have no idea if her rolling pin ever disappeared. But I loved your example of just getting a dowel, kind of the size that you think is appropriate, an inexpensive dowel at a hardware store, and using that.
Yes, yes. Ideally, you don't. I mean, it'll warp eventually, and that won't be great because you want it straight to have an even thickness to your pasta sheet.
Yes.
But then you can use it for drying your tagliatelle on. So,
with how many places? I know you're in your second season now. How many have you recorded? How many episodes have you recorded, Vicky?
Nearly 400.
Oh my God.
Yes. So we've been all over Italy, and there are only two regions that we haven't been to: Molise and Aosta.
Okay.
And you know, when we say we've been to Tuscany, it's only sort of small areas of Tuscany. So of course we're going to go back to Tuscany, you know, because there's so much variety and that kind of thing. But yeah, we are constantly going around Italy.
And when you go to different towns, do you find someone else? I mean, if you've gone to somewhere because you heard about it, or a friend referred you, or a granny contacted you, or a granny's grandson contacted you,
yeah.
Then when you get there, do you meet other people that you think, oh, we need to film them?
No, we plan it in advance.
Okay.
So, you know, we have a schedule that's developed. And these days I have a granny finder. And her name is Livia De Giovanni, and she lives in Faenza. And as we speak, she is plotting what we should be filming in Piemonte at the end of November.
Perfect. Okay, so you have a granny finder. That makes perfect sense. She's your location manager, is what you're telling.
Yes, I prefer granny finder because
I do too. Now answer me this. Why are there so many different shapes of pasta? And I don't mean you to have to tell me 400 or 500 or 4,000 years of history, but when you go to different regions of Italy, do you have just a theory on why you think there's so many shapes of pasta?
Yes, I do. So number one is geography. So Italy is very mountainous, and that also the climate about what will grow where. So, you know, durum wheat is only grown in the south of Italy, and soft wheat is grown in the north. So that instantly creates changes and diversity. And then I think the other one is that Italy is a fairly new country, and before that, there's lots of different regions, and within that, there are lots of different dialects. And pasta is actually a group activity for quite a lot of occasions. You know, a lot of these pastas are celebratory ones. They are for Christmas. So it's when the women of the family get together or the women of the village get together. And for that, you need consensus. So for every village, you have a different set of people reaching a consensus, and that might be different. And I think that's how names are different, because the dialects are different. And so I think that's one of the reasons why there is so much diversity in shape and naming, and a kind of randomness about it as well. There's no kind of overarching sort of architecture about why names are the way they are or shapes are the way they are. I think it's around just community differences.
I have been at a table with Italians where there has been a huge fight when two different people, of course, one isn't there. I grew up in this, Vicky. I mean, my family could fight about a parking space. Okay. I mean, it's the holidays. My grandfather had made sure that he had a parking space in front of the building. If one of the relatives came and didn't take that parking space, I'm telling you, it was a brawl. So I have been in a friends or people that live in Italy, their home, when someone has brought a pasta or made a pasta and called it one thing, and the person sitting there said, no, that's not what it is. And I always say to people that I'm with that aren't Italian, I go, okay, pour another glass of wine and sit back and enjoy it, because this is going to take a while for them to decide what the name of this pasta really is.
And they'll both be right.
Yes. Okay. That's what I was waiting for you to say. I totally understand that. Now, when we just talked about a pasta board, and you have some great tips in your book, when you're with your grannies, do most of them have a pasta board that's 50 years old? Was it their mothers? Are they going to give it to their daughters? Or is there any attachment to their equipment? Because I would have loved to have known how my grandmother, what roller she used. And it never dawned on me now. Never until now.
Yeah, so they are handed down, I think.
Yes.
You know, particularly the boards. I mean, there are a variety of boards, and they're made with a variety of woods. And quite often a table will be devoted, like your grandmother's, where the board is kept underneath the kitchen table and then brought out on top. Yes. When they want to do it. And so wooden boards, they're used only for pasta. They're not used for chopping things on. They're not used for the vegetables or anything like that. They don't want any of the other flavors on them. So, you know, quite a lot of our ladies actually keep them in, you know, material bags. They sort of kind of put them away, and if occasionally we'll have a group of women and they've traveled, you know, to the village hall or something, and they will bring their own boards with them because they don't trust anybody else's.
Of course they do.
And the main thing is to avoid plastic. Plastic is a terrible thing to do to pasta.
Yes. When I was in school, when I was in culinary school, the chefs, the French chefs, would have us just make it on a stainless steel table. I know. And I'd say to them, we need a wooden board. And they'd say, you can make it on this, but it didn't work. It didn't work. It didn't turn out as well. That's all I can. Now, there's several things people should know. You discuss equipment, you discuss flour, you discuss formulas, how to adjust the flour, and the difference between semolina and, you know, 00 pasta. When I got to your page on cooking pasta, this was the part that I absolutely loved. Of course, again, when I was in school, or the chefs would tell us to, you know, it was the biggest stock pot in the kitchen, to fill it with water, the pasta had to have all this, you know, room to move and all the rolling. And I would go to my grandmother's apartment and she was cooking pasta, or she would come to my house and there were going to be 10 or 14 of us. She brought a normal size pan. Do you know what I mean? And she did salt the water. She always salted the water right as we started. And brought it to a rolling boil. But that was a small pan and the pasta cooked great.
Yeah. So, your granny and all other Signora Anziane, object to spending large sums of money and heating a large pot up. So it's much more economic to use a just enough, just good enough, just large enough pasta. Pan. So that's what I mean. If you don't want it to stick, you stir it. You don't need to. You don't need to add oil either. That's an expensive waste of oil. So yeah, use an ordinary pan.
See, when you brought this up, when these are in your book, Vicky, and this is so for you, we have a wonderful audience of younger women. People don't realize, sometimes they just haven't thought about it. It's not, and if their grandparents didn't live this way. See, I was always because I'm 71. I was a cocktail waitress at the Last Supper. So I've been here for a long time. And what I can remember, because World War II had only been over 4 or 5 years when I was born. Do you know what I mean? If even that. Yeah. So things like not wasting electricity, not using oil, even water. Do you know what I mean? It was all very commonplace for me growing up that you didn't waste anything because they had been rations during the war. It's a fascinating thing, but I love that you wrote that about the size of the pan, because I do it now when I cook pasta, and it's usually store-bought pasta. I don't have a gigantic pan because it comes out just fine. I know it's going to come out just fine.
It is. It will. So I mean, I even have film women who will keep the pasta. They won't pour the pasta water down the sink.
Yes.
They'll use it to wash dishes, rinse them anyway.
Yeah.
And that thing about adding pasta water back into the sauce,
yes,
it's a matter of judgment. It's not something that you have to do.
Okay.
And I think it applies more to using dried pasta, because you're cooking fresh pasta for a much shorter length of time. So you're not getting the same level of starch coming into the water. So there's lots of things that I think have grown up around restaurant cooking that have become sort of laws around pasta, which aren't actually the case.
Well, I feel validated by you. And I'll tell you what else. See, every chef would say to me, keep a cup of that pasta sauce keep a cup of the water for your sauce. I don't want to add that water to my sauce. I didn't need it in my sauce. My sauce was fine. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I never understood that. And just recently, in one of the Facebook groups, there was I hadn't read your book yet, so I didn't say anything, because they said, how do you boil your pasta? And all these terribly sophisticated people in the group, tons of water, have to put oil, biggest pot you've got. And they went on and on and on. And I didn't say anything because I thought that's totally not how I was taught to cook pasta. But I didn't feel like fighting that day. And now I'm going back to that group. And I would say, I just read a fabulous book, and it was talking about how the grannies cook pasta in Italy. So I'm gonna stir it up today after I've talked to you, Vicky.
Well, I think some people want to use large pots. Of course, they can. It's just, I think give yourself a break. You don't have. Also, they're very heavy. I mean, if you boil a large pan of pasta, you need to be strong to heave it over the sink. I mean, or you scoop it out. But I mean, even so, you're dealing with large amounts of boiling water. It's not.
And it takes too long to get the water boiling. That's what I don't like. Now, I need to tell you, in your press pack that came with your book, there's so many fabulous tips. It also talks about how the book is laid out, which I absolutely love. But I have to tell you, one of the things, and Stanley Tucci, if people watch Stanley's show on CNN, calls the book heartwarming and deliciously comforting. I think that's it's a lovely. Now I have to tell you one thing. There's some pictures of the grannies in the book, and I love them all, and one or two gentlemen, but I have to tell you, there's a woman in a red polka dot dress.
Oh, Benny.
What's her name?
Benny.
Okay. She has on a necklace and her earrings, and then she's poised at one point next to a picture. And I thought, and unlike because when I've watched I've watched a lot of your shows. I don't know if it was the first season or more, but some of those women didn't even brush their hair before you came into the kitchen. Do you know what I mean? They didn't care, or they weren't worried about it. And which I thought was charming. That was half the charm. But the one that was dressed up a little bit and looking at the camera, I thought, okay, she's a star.
She is a star. She's I can't remember. She's now 96, I think.
Oh my God.
And so she's well in, and we've been to see her several times. She lives in Procida, which is an island off Naples.
Oh,
And she has always loved fashion, and so it's that love has never left her. So she had, she's got a carer these days, but with the carer's help, she gets her nails done, she gets her hair done, she puts on all her jewelry, and then she rocks this fantastic dress with a pair of trainers.
I could pick her out of a crowd because I loved her style.
Yes, she's got great vitality.
Yeah. 96. Now I can imagine with your granny finder that if they say it, people know about the show. How did you get the first people to cooperate, Vicky? I mean, before it had 2 million people viewing it on YouTube and being subscribers, how did you explain to some of these women? Because I know I watched a lot of them didn't speak English.
Well, none of them do.
Okay.
So, it's about sort of showing them the previous video, saying we're saving pasta shapes. You're an expert. Please help us.
I love it. And they say fine.
Yeah. Mm.
I've loved several of them that I watched, but I love the ones then that set out the table because you were expected to eat. They had, if you had said, oh, we don't have time, they would have said, you're eating. And I also loved one or two of them that, whether it was you, the cameraman, whoever kind of suggested something, they kind of went, no, like we did it, you got it, we're done. It cracked me up. They were wonderful. So unaffected. What do you think has been, if you were going to ask, and I know the sales of the book has been great, and this new book is just beautiful, and I love the photography, and I love the women's hands, and I love the landscapes, and that so people can really understand what, if you've never been to Italy, to me, I mean, Italy was the first place I went when I could travel. Do you know what I mean? As I got old enough. I had gone as a child, Vicky, but I was so young, it didn't matter. And then I became a young adult. It was one of the first places I wanted to go because I went and I could see why my grandfather liked flowers and the herbs he grew and the garden that he had. Because we lived in San Francisco. So here in this apartment building he owned it. But so behind the building, in the sandy soil of San Francisco, we had every kind of vegetable and lettuce. Do you know what I mean? And he grew them, and I didn't even know that lettuce came from the grocery store for the first 8 or 9 years of my life. Do you know what I mean? I thought, and we had a rabbit that we, of course, at the time, it was our pet. And then every Easter, the rabbit would run away, as he said, oh, that rabbit, he ran away. And of course, we didn't know we were eating the rabbit, but it didn't matter. And my mother, of course, later on in the car would say, what did you think of that chicken, girls? And we'd say, Mommy, it was delicious. Luckily, she didn't tell us, none of us. So many of the pictures, I'm looking at your silk handkerchiefs with basil and pesto. God, that looks beautiful.
It is wonderful. That's Nadia's recipe. Yes. Well, I mean, you just have to make it very fine. You make a roll out of pasta dough very finely, as finely as you possibly can. Yeah. So that might mean using a pasta machine if you're not expert. And then you dress it with pesto, and it's absolutely wonderful.
There's several recipes for pesto in here. There's a way to handle your herbs in here. I love the fact that you don't that you tell people, of course, they can use a pasta machine.
I mean, so the difference between wood and wood, or using a wooden pin and a board, and then using metal rollers, is that you'll get a much more smooth pasta sheet at the end, and it's sort of more slippery, if you like. So when you make it with wood on wood, you'll get more of what I call a cat's tongue texture
Get it.
to the thing. But it's a matter of nuance. You know,
Yeah.
you're not going to spit it out and say, oh, this doesn't taste like pasta. I mean, of course it tastes like pasta and it'll be lovely, but wood on wood allows it to the sauce to cling to the pasta a little bit more.
I love it. I get it. I've made lots of gnocchi in my life because my grandmother taught me that, and I learned it. And if people don't know, there's great recipes in Vicky's book for gnocchi, and you don't need special equipment. You can just use a fork.
Yeah.
Last time I was in Italy, I bought one of the little fun boards.
Yeah.
And brought it home. And then I went to make it, and I just used my fork again because I'd forgotten that I bought the fancy little paddle board. That's the problem. That's the problem as you get out. I love the pictures of, did you take a lot of these pictures, Vicky, or have you?
So Lizzie Mason is the photographer. There are about 3 photographs that are mine in the book.
Well, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I love it. And it's organized so well and so easy. I'm looking at this portrait just so nobody else can see it because we don't. I'm looking at this portrait, though, of this woman.
Oh, Pina. Yes.
It's amazing.
Isn't it?
It's amazing. Yes. That's why I must have marked that one because my grandmother's name was Josephina and everybody called her Pina. So that's why I'm probably attracted to it.
Yes.
Have I asked you everything I should? Is there anything else you wanted to tell us? Are you amazed after 9 years by the popularity of this now, or are you just thrilled, or both?
I'm amazed and thrilled. You know, it never ceases to amaze me that it continues and you know, it becomes more and more popular. So that's it's just fantastic. You know, I have the best job in the world. I get to meet these women, and I get to write books, and I get to meet lovely fans. So you know, I'm sort of on to second week of the book tour here in America, and having great fun. And I suppose with the second book, what I'm pleased about is the fact that it's got QR codes at the bottom of every recipe, so you can actually link back while you read it. You can link back to the video.
Oh, yes, I see them now. I didn't even notice them.
Scan your QR code, and voila, your Pina will show you how to make those gnocchi.
I just noticed it. You're so smart. I hadn't even looked at that. I think, well, Vicky, I think, and this is something that always runs through with most of the people that we have on, guests, females or male, perseverance as you, in anything in life. I mean, real, true perseverance. Like you said, you started 9 years ago. That's a lot. And you know what I mean? I think young people, and I'm not, but young people after a year or two, we've had a lot of students that will email us and say, oh, I took your class and we've done this, or I've done this, but I haven't, or wanted a book deal and they found a new agent or they had that and it's just not happening. And I feel like saying, honey, you've only been at this for a year or two. I mean, I don't know anybody anymore that didn't spend 20 or 30 years in food. Do you know what I mean? And it's what it is. Perseverance is everything.
It is, and you've got to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it without any idea of reward in terms of recognition and stuff like that. That, you know, you are satisfied with what you're doing, and I think particularly with social media, people will find you. You know, if you have a passion and a knowledge, and you're communicating that well about that particular subject, whether it's pasta making or crochet. You know, people will find you.
I think that's a great point. All right, now where else? So you're on tour. So you're in the United States right now, and you're on tour.
Yes, I am really enjoying it. I mean, you know, after the pandemic, to actually be allowed to travel again is
I know
it's a great thrill.
In a time. It's time. Well, all I know is people should look. They go to YouTube, and what do they put in? Pasta Grannies?
Pasta Grannies.
Okay. And we put all the information about Vicky that she allows us to up on our, when we broadcast it, and we have a Woman Beyond a Certain Age Facebook page and a website, Woman Beyond a Certain Age. womanbeyond@icloud.com. If you want to reach out to Cindy and I, it's womanbeyond@icloud.com. And is your book everywhere now, Vicky? I mean, yes, it's pretty much everywhere, isn't it? In bookstores and at Amazon or places you can go to. Excellent. Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure.
I feel like if anybody needs tips to making pasta, I got to tell you something. Buy this book. Within the first 4 or 5 pages, all the fears you have about pasta will go out the window. I've made pasta, so I'm not afraid of it, but it inspired me to make it again. Do you know what I mean? I just don't make it often enough. And it's because I'm lazy, Vicky, I'll be perfectly honest with you. And because I can get pretty good store-bought pastas, and then I concentrate on the sauce. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, and that's inevitable. I think what happens these days is we have a choice.
Yes.
And that's great. Yeah. So, concentrate on those sauces.
That's right. That's what I do. Thank you so much. Thank you for your precious time. I'm so glad we could connect today. And Miss Cindy, thank you for always keeping the train on the track, and she really does. And this is Denise, and I want to thank you all, and I want you to go out and look for Pasta Grannies and Comfort Cooking in your local bookstore, but also go to YouTube. And if you haven't seen any of the episodes, I'm going to tell you, and it'll make you want to call your grandmother. That's what it'll do. It'll make you want to call your grandmother. And it sent me off on a journey to find out now where my grandmother's pasta roller is.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed.
Welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.